We are live. Watch Goons, the most trash show on YouTube, episode 30. And today we have the man, the myth, the legend, Daniel Romero.
What's up, guys? Thank you for having me on, man.
Yeah, of course, dude. I've been trying to organize this forever, and I feel like we just kept missing.
Yeah,
over and over. But you're a busy guy, so
definitely am. Thank you for being patient.
Of course. I mean, patience is key, and I don't pick shit up right away, so I have to learn some patience. So let's just dive right into it. You're an owner of a dojo in Moore, California. You teach primarily Muay Thai, but also boxing, and you have some jiu-jitsu background, and you've also worked with Richie, who's our wrestling coach, who was prolific in high school and had a nice little junior college career. Mm-hmm. So tell me about how that all started.
I've been doing martial arts since I was a kid, really. You know, I've always been an enthusiast. I've been watching, Bruce Lee and all those old fight movies for as long as I can remember. But I have to give a lot of credit to my dad, actually, my upbringing, for one, introducing me to all of the content, but also being the one to really put the effort to taking me to sign up at a karate school and doing the grappling with me at home and waking me up at 4 or 5 in the morning before school and making me hit the bag before getting my day started. So it's something that I was essentially born into, right? I mean, obviously it took a few years of my childhood before I really was exposed to it, but 7, 8, 9 years old, it's that's been doing it my entire life.
Yeah. So. There's a lot of people that I've met on my personal journey that grew up in martial arts, but there's a very distinct difference, and obviously there's overlap, but I think a lot of us, like you mentioned, watched Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, just other actors that were in action movies that kind of inspired us and stuff like that. But what do you think made you want to get everyone is interested in the discipline and the tradition and the maybe the cardio or whatever, but yeah. What made you want to fight?
That's a great question, and I've been reflecting on that pretty much my entire life, and I think what it comes down to is my upbringing, although wasn't the absolute worst. I believe that there's always somebody out there who had it completely. There's always somebody out there who had it much worse, but it also wasn't the most pleasant, And I think that not only was it this way for me to really, what's the word I'm looking for? To get out of myself and really, it was a coping mechanism,
like escapism.
It's escaping, yeah. But it was also a way for me to really just go do something that I was absolutely terrified to do, to prove to myself that I could actually do it. And it may sound cliche, but when you're in there, man, and you get the shit kicked out of you, there's no more real feeling than that. Yeah. And it helped me just get out of my head and helped me get into the situation of the matter. It helped me really just honestly stay alive in so many ways, from the training to the learning how to live the lifestyle to the actual fight itself. And it's something that I've committed to my entire life, so it's just been a way to really help me mold myself into the person that I'm supposed to become. And it's just it's a very scary thing to do from the combat sports aspect, to go in there and to fight. But it's just as simple as going in there and just doing some scary shit.
That's really profound, and I like the way you put that. Proving to yourself you can do it, because I think a lot of us had, especially like us 90s baby, and I was born in 89, whatever, we had boomer parents, and I don't know your dad like that, but mine was real stoic and like really old school, like manly man. And I think that you kind of sense that growing up, but a lot of people want to, how do I put it? They want to be tough or be their perception of masculine or try to get in touch with their warrior spirit, but they are not willing to throw themselves in the fire. So that's why you see all these gym bros, that are lifting weights. They look crazy. Like, and a lot of it to me is because they have a desire to experience that, but they don't have the warrior spirit.
Yeah.
And I think it's different because people think when you get in there in the ring or in the cage or whatever whatever mat, whatever it is, that the guys that are good are not scared. But it's in my experience, when guys are being honest, everyone's scared. The difference is you force yourself to go through it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I agree with that 100%. And that's one of the things that, from the mindset perspective, that my dad taught me since day one, and because he, for most of my life, up until now, he's my main trainer, and so that being said, he understood and could see me in different ways that I wasn't able to understand and see myself, right? It's almost like he knew me better than I knew myself. So, and I wear my emotions on my face. So if I were scared in a situation, he would see it. I would feel it, but as a fighter, it's like, damn, you're trying to figure out how to deal with those emotions, So he would always tell me that the dude standing in front of you, he's a person too, right? He may look like he's trying to be tough or look like he's doing this or that, but I guarantee you, if you peel back the covers, he's feeling similar, if not the same emotions that you're feeling right now.
Yeah.
Because of that, you have to respect him, but you also don't have to fear him.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's why I have a deeper respect for fighters more than any other form of athletes, or just men in general. Like, there's a deep bond there. And yeah, it does go back to respect, because even if you don't like someone, if someone is willing to go in there and test themselves, that's a rare thing. A lot of people talk like they can fight, or will tell you about an experience outside of a bar one time, but it's a different animal when you live, breathe, and sleep that lifestyle that you grew up in with your father. Did he? Obviously, he's been in mixed or martial arts himself, but was it a choice to you that you gravitated towards it, or was it like you were trying to impress him because you knew that's what he liked? Or how did that all start?
Yeah, a little bit of both, man. I think that I just naturally have always gravitated toward it. I mean, even watching the movies as a kid, and I would even be playing outside by myself, and in my head, I'm imagining this whole action sequence where I'm, Neo from the Matrix or Jackie Chan, and trying to do tornado kicks off the wall, beating up all the invisible bad guys and everything. So there's that I have that gene in me. But just the natural progression of life, and everything else that came along with growing up, and all of the external factors. Of course, there were those times to where I gravitated away from it, and it's like I didn't want to train anymore because I've been doing it since I was a kid, and then I had to force myself to train because I had this subconscious need to grab the respect of my dad and try to impress him and all these other people, because I was growing up, and I mean, as a little kid, like 10 years old, 11 years old, and even into my early teen years, people looked at me in the martial arts world like I was an anomaly. The way we have little David, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this dude's 14 years old, but he's a grown ass man.
He's a killer.
And he's taking grown ass man out.
He's a killer.
Sparring with them, you know?
Yeah.
So I was very similar to that, but nowhere near as technical as David, right? Because my coaching was a little bit different. But I was put up on this pedestal, you know, and that was a lot of pressure looking back now that I was under, you know. I mean, I was a teenager teaching grown ass men how to throw a punch, right?
Yeah.
And how to defend themselves in certain situations. So I had a lot to prove, right? And I think that because of that, right, it caused me to crack under pressure and veer away from that lifestyle and choose, you know, the drinking and the drugs and the partying and going off and doing this and that and the other thing, versus completely staying serious and committing to that.
Yeah, I think people who stick with it, I think people start things, you know, especially in competitive atmospheres for different reasons. But what makes you stick with it is, I think, it fulfills something inside of you. At least I can only speak on my experience, but for me, fighting filled a void of anger, misplacement, judgment, rage, and I would say just feeling like I didn't have a home or a label that I fit nicely into. And I think fighting is this lovable group of kind of losers or low. I don't want to say that has a negative connotation, but I feel like there's a reason why the best fighters in any sport come from an upbringing that's not polished, broken, yes. And they have a chip on their shoulder. They're trying to prove something to someone or to themselves, like you said. And I think to stick to it, it takes finding inner peace with yourself, because otherwise you're going to do it. You're going to get you're going to experience it. You did it. And then it's like on to the next thing. So for me, it's like, it's transitioned over the years, and maybe you can speak to this too, from a thing that was feeding a monster, and now it's feeding my solace.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very common thing, you know, and that's that progression that I'm talking about too, is like, there's the martial arts, or there's the martial artist, and then there's the person.
Yeah.
Right. So
very different.
The person, right? It's like following in the path, the righteous path, right? If you're religious, you follow in the path of Jesus, right? Okay. So there's the righteous person, or whoever you believe, whoever your higher power is. You follow the path of that higher power, right? And then you follow the path of yourself, right? Your own ego, your own pride, your own free will.
Yeah.
Right. So in terms of martial arts, there's the martial artist path, and then there's whatever path that person is on, right? And if you're not completely in line with that path of being a martial artist, well, your life is just going to be fucked.
Yeah.
Right. And especially if the martial arts stays with you, right? So even when I tried to push it away, it still stayed with me.
Yeah.
Right? And that was my own choice. I didn't always intend for that to happen. I tried to push it away, but it's just a part of who I am, right? So we start to veer off from that. So you can't be an alcoholic and a martial artist at the same time, right? Sure. You can, but you're not going to live by the martial artist principles, right? You can't practice to be an absolute killer in the dojo and then go out and try to prove yourself in an egotistical manner in every social situation for the sake of feeding your own ego,
Yeah.
right? It's a very you have to really fight to get the martial artist path and the person that you are to mesh and mold together and use it as a constructive pathway, right? And that's the most challenging part in the early years, the years when you were actively fighting and I was actively fighting, where it's like, damn, we're still very young. We're still very young now, but then we were very, very young.
Yeah.
Right? And you have this way that you go in there and you train hard and you beat the shit out of people, and these other people are pumping you up and they look at you a certain way. So now you become this person that everybody else thinks that you are, but you're not really that person. Right, and then you got to fight all those demons, and then
you got to live up to the idea of what people have in their head, and maybe you're having an off day, and
absolutely,
that totally makes sense. And just pivoting a little bit here, going a little bit longer into your martial arts journey, not fully transitioning, because I know that you have to have that itch. There's no way you can tell me you don't still have the itch, but going more from combatant to coach and getting into the business of it and running your dojo that from all accounts, at least from what I see, is very successful. Talk to me about how that transition happened and what made you want to pivot that way a little bit, and then, feel free to get into the business side of it too, sure, if you want.
Yeah. The business, it's funny because the business side of it has been there since day one. Since I first started training, I've always I think it was like 4th or 5th grade or something like that. One of our school projects was we had to write this little book, and they asked you questions, and in a few sentences you explain what you want to do when you're older and what your dream is and all this and that. You paint little pictures. And I remember my mom showed it to me probably 10 years ago when she was packing some things up, and I read what I wrote, when I was, 10 years old. And I said that when I grow up, I want to be a martial artist and a martial arts school owner.
Oh, wow.
And it's been one of those things that is just, like I said earlier, it's been a part of me. It's ingrained in me just innately. So growing up, I've always been a very entrepreneurial kid, right? I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. Like I would, spring breaks, summer breaks, I'd wake up at 5 a.m., eat my breakfast, and as soon as the sun came up, I'd go knock on every single neighbor's door, asking if there's something I could do for work. I'd wash rims, I'd pick up dog shit. I even built a shed once, wow, with some wood that was just sitting back there in the railroad track. And dude, I'm 10 years old, so I had to figure some things out. But once I really started to mold into myself as a martial artist, and this is around the age of maybe 13, 14 years old, and people started associating me with martial arts or fighting, I would say, hey, come over after school. First session's free, right? We're gonna train. I'm gonna teach you whatever I know, and it's gonna be good practice for me to get better at the same time, because now I have more training partners, and I need to learn how to teach it in order to get better at it, right? And this was all came at a very young age for me. So I bring people in after school, like Chris Paredes. That's when he started training. He's a little bit younger than I am, but his brother's the same age as me. So brought them in and a few other guys, and the driveway was slanted and fucking oil stains all over the place. So people were slipping and bumping knees and all that, but I would charge them $5 a head, to come and train after school. And I started making money doing it. And that, just carried on all the way up until now.
So was it basically like guerrilla marketing, where a little bit of word of mouth, a little bit of social media, these people that back in the day were training now have kids, and that's how the kids program started?
The kids program, you're talking about like in general, how did I really start making money with it, like from the beginning, or
it sounds like that's like the genesis of it, training in the driveway. How did that transition to now you own a dojo?
So I mean, it's it's a dream, it's a purpose, it's a manifestation that I've made every sacrifice for since day one, and it's barely starting to grow, right? 15, 16, 17 years of effort later, from an early teenager to now being 30 years old, all of that hard work is starting to come to life, and it led up into, when I'm like 18, 19 years old. Yeah, I have these glimpses of I'm going for it. I start to build a book of business. Personal training now. I'm training people in parks. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. But then it gets hard, or I think I don't want to do martial arts anymore. I don't want to fight anymore. I don't want to coach anymore. I'm tired of it. Been doing it my entire life.
Yeah.
So I go off and get a stupid fucking sales job, or I go off and do this or do that or whatever it may be.
But you couldn't escape it.
I couldn't escape it, right? So, and it's always been this dream. And it really came down to every time that I veered off from building it into a business was because I felt the pressure of what is required to become a successful business person, right? I was not yet the person I needed to become in order to actually have a successful business, right? So I would veer off and I would offload that pressure and tap so I can go off and do something a little bit easier, right? But more recently, right, we opened up here March of 2020, like literally 2-3 weeks before the lockdown happened, or February of 2020, whatever it was. And the first couple of weeks, man, just surplus of people just come in. Everybody throughout the years that's followed me just comes in. They start signing up. Classes are full. The mat is full, and personal training is popping, and boom, lockdown happens. So fortunately, we were able to make it through that. But at that point, I had to make a decision. Like, am I going to do this or am I not going to do this? So I made the commitment and I stood open, right? And of course, we followed all the safety protocols and everything, but I had to get creative in my mindset now. I had to transition from group classes to personal training, but I also I had just lost my fucking job,
Right.
So I had to go all in or do something else, and my baby was just, a year old, and it was fucking challenging, but, so we had to transition from group classes to personal training, but in order to make it residual, right, I couldn't just sell personal training packages by the session or 10 session packages, because there's no incentive to keep coming up. So I was like, okay, well, how can I develop this business model now to keep people coming up, to keep paying me month per month, but also not fucking ream them because everybody lost.
Yeah, make sure they get their money's worth.
Exactly. Yeah. Right? So I changed the entire business model to a subscription-based personal training, right? And it was more expensive than what a regular class membership is, but not as expensive as it would have been had I charged session per session or 10 session packages or whatever it may be, right? So naturally, making that transition, I had, maybe 30% of my clientele drop off that were taking the group classes, which was a huge hit, but I was still able to make ends meet with the increase in price with the subscription-based personal training, with the additional 70% that stayed, right? So it was a grueling fucking process, and it still is today. It always is going to be. But I think where we currently stand right now is finally after all the lockdowns and the rules and this and that and all the different transitions within the business, it's finally starting to kind of find its flow.
Yeah. And I was going to say, nobody saw, obviously, COVID happening, but in a lot of businesses shut down during that time. I mean, businesses that were not just surviving or putting along, but like thriving. And the fact that you were able to find a way to pivot and work within the guidelines and serve your people, I think is a testament to not only your character, but your intelligence. Because, I mean, I can speak just for Gold Gym alone. there was months where I was like, hey, can I put a freeze on my account? And they're like, nope, you can cancel it if you want, or you can pay us, and we literally cannot let you in the doors. So I was just paying to fucking have a membership that will let you know when it's good again, you know? So I think that's super admirable, and I think that a lot of people can take something away from that. Like there's always a way for you to succeed in something as long as you stay malleable, vigilant, and on top of it, you know, and dedicated. I think that's probably the main thing is dedication, which obviously, you know, 5-year-old Danny was thinking about this shit already.
Yeah.
Maybe not COVID, but you know.
Yeah.
So you said you had your son in 2019 then?
We had him in 2017.
17.
So he was
okay.
You know, his birthday's in September, so he was 2 going on 3 at that time.
Okay. How did
3
obviously that's life changing. So did that kind of set a extra fire up your ass to kind of get the wheels in motion and get all that stuff going?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's the story of my son is very it's similar to the whole martial arts journey, you know, and it's one of those things to where I first envisioned having a family at the young age of 9 years old, you know, and there's a very specific story behind that. But it's one of those things that I've also manifested in my life, I feel. And he is that external factor that helped me really grow, right? Helped me really become better in every single aspect of being a person.
Yeah.
Right. So, and the fact that I was the primary breadwinner, right, within my relationship as well, I had no choice but to really do or die in that situation. So yeah, 1000% having a young child, a young family, and you know, having this partner, my for Nada, that's her name, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the time, right, just seeing me do everything I can to try to live up to every single promise I made. And as a married man, I'm sure you guys have those conversations too. Like, hey, we're gonna get here, we're gonna do this.
Often.
Just please believe me, just trust me, and let's do it. So, yeah, I think both of them, both Nada and Luca, were very, very just huge factors in why I was able to push through and find that creativity to keep it going.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, I don't have any kids that I know of, but I can definitely speak to a responsibility and a self of duty that comes. And for me, it feels naturally, but apparently, I mean, I know enough people to where it's not natural for everyone, but when you're responsible for someone else, like for me, it came obviously from a legal union aspect, but and you from a biological aspect, it forces you to try to elevate yourself, because obviously you're not just performing for you, but you also had a vision of whatever you saw, from healthy relationships, maybe not even maybe your parents, but just ideals you had growing up. I mean, you said at 9 you envisioned having a family, and I think it forces you to kind of adapt and become a better man, at least for people that have good ethics and weren't totally heathens, But that's that's profound, man. Speaking of your son, what would you say to him if he wanted to get into fighting? How do you feel about that?
I think about that all the time. At this current point, I feel I would be supportive of it, right? I mean, I'm no matter how fearful I am for him to step into a ring or a cage or even a grappling match for that matter,
Yeah.
any competition that's combat sports related, I would be scared for sure. You know, that's my son.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different than me going out and doing it, but at the same time, I know that it's going to help him. You know, what's required of him in order to be successful doing that is what I'm really in support of, right? The commitment to do something that you're absolutely fearful of, but still manage to do everything in your power to ensure that you're going to be successful in your own regard and make that fucking walk. That's the hardest part, man. And you know it. When you're walking up those 3 little steps and you hear that goddamn cage door lock and you see the killer right in front of you, it's a scary thing, you know? So I would be in support of it 100% if he came to me right now. And he's 5 years old, but he's getting to that age to where he could start to compete.
This is when,
right?
You know, like the world-class boxers start getting that muscle memory. It's right now.
Yeah,
at this age. You know, Floyd was 4 or 5 years old hitting mitts. So yeah. And I think fighting is like the best. I don't know if you want to call it sport, but sport, martial art, whatever. What's the word? Like metaphor or parallel.
It's the best teacher
for life of a man, because like you said, making that walk. How many people do you know like that you grew up with, and there's nothing wrong with them, but they still work at Home Depot. They're still in this place because they're afraid to go back to college and finish their degree. They're afraid to go all in on something because they become comfortable and they're not satisfied in their life, but they have the fear of failure trumps the lukewarm waters of kind of just existing, you know?
Mediocrity.
Yeah, exactly. That's way better terminology. And so I think that fighting breeds life winners.
I think it's just the mindset, man. And that's where it's a very hard thing to do as the leader of this business, right? And as you see, you go in there and you have previous experience when we're training, right? And then we've got other guys who are trying to fight to challenge themselves. And then we got other guys who they come in there because they either want to lose weight, they need to stay in shape, or they've always been afraid to do it. And now they finally got the balls to, you know, send the email, inquire, and walk through the door and sign up, right? The hardest part for me, right, with my vision, what I try to incorporate into what is Romero's Fight Academy that separates me from every other gym is how do I transfer the principles, the knowledge, the methods of what it is that makes that fighter successful in becoming a better person, because he does face his fears and go out there and do that, and apply that to somebody who is not going to make the physical walk to the cage, to the ring, right? So how do we bring them out of their comfort zone and say, you can do this, man. It doesn't matter if you're 40 years old, you made the commitment and you're here. So let's start to change the psychology a little bit. Let's get out of the shitty job that you work and you absolutely hate, and let's help build you into that person that you want to become, so you can go out there and you can thrive, right? And you can come to Romero's Fight Academy, right? You can learn and train with everybody in here and have this very supportive environment that's going to challenge you not only physically, but challenge you to become better than who the hell you were when you walked in that goddamn door. And I know that every gym thinks this way, right? Every coach probably thinks this way, but do they actually sit down and take the time to get to know these people, aside from just a recurring membership payment, right? It's a very hard thing to do, but that is whether you're a fighter or not, it's the principles, the methods used, the willingness to go out there and face your fears and get out of whatever hell you're in and become better than that.
Well, I think that you're not giving enough credit to yourself and too much credit to other coaches, because I can speak. I couldn't do what you do. You have a temperament and a mind for what fighting means to everyone. I personally got into martial arts with the idea that I would be punching and kicking someone in the face at some point. And along my journey, I tried to surround myself in the past with gyms that had guys with similar mentalities. And I never understood people who went there trying to get something non-combative out of it. And I think that you have a special gift and a patience, and it helps me, because even though like I'm 33, the UFC is not calling, right? So, but I still get frustrated with myself deeply when I can't get techniques, because I forever have this thing in my head where like, well, you need to get this down and force it into your fast twitch muscle memory, because you're going to use it someday, even though I may not, right?
Yeah.
And so I really, when I first met you, I gotta be honest, dude, I thought that you were too cool for school and just too calm. Like, I thought it was like a facade, because I was like, there's no way that this guy that's in combat sports is this relaxed and like,
Oh, motherfucker.
yeah, dude, never gets mad about anything. Never, like, I was like, but you really are like cooler than the other side of the pillow, dude. And I say that in like the most respectful, like admirable way possible. I'm fiery all the time. I mean, you've been around me, but like, I think it's a gift, man. A lot of gyms, guys and girls leave because, I'm not going to use another business's name, but there's competing gyms in the similar area where if you don't join their fight team, they treat you different. You won't get special attention, or, hey, I have this question, can you stay after class and work with whatever technique you were showing me that wasn't jiving for whatever reason. Yeah. That's, in my experience, more the norm than what you're talking about, which is trying to just give this guy or girl something in their life that enriches their life.
Yeah, we're trying to develop the person. It's a journey of personal development in every sense of the concept, right? Every sense of that subject. It's personally developing every single individual, that, or providing them with the tools to help them understand that they are capable of developing themselves into somebody better, right? Like that's the journey. And that's why I feel like I end up becoming somewhat of a therapist a lot of the time outside of martial arts.
God, right? I hope you don't feel that way about me. I don't know.
No, I mean, it's with everybody, man. And I think it's just part of who I am too. And I work in the field full time. And, so I think that it's just, I don't know truly, but I like to think that I'm heading toward that direction of, well, the members of the gym are coming to the gym and they're understanding that I truly am there with them and for them. And no matter who you are or where you come from, you're one of us.
Yeah.
Right. And we're here together. Yeah.
I mean, that's just facts. There's all different kinds of people in there. It's not, there's one thread that kind of bonds us all together, and that is, you and what you built, Everyone's different in there. There's all different types of temperamentals and people trying to get different things out of it. So again, yeah, that's nothing but respect, man, for
Thank you.
for that, of course. I know we touched on this a little bit earlier, but if your son did want to get into it, would you want to be the coach of that indefinitely? And have you also thought about the hats you have to wear? Because it's really hard to stay supporting, loving, whatever dad, and then also putting on the coach hat. Like my dad, he won state and against Kurt Rambis when he was in high school and played basketball. He was really good. And he coached my basketball team, and it was like I was the coach's son. And if anything, I felt like I got non-preferential treatment because he wanted to make sure, like, yo, if someone's getting the short end of the stick, it's this kid right here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not your temperament, but how do you navigate those waters?
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I think I would do fairly well with treating him fairly with everybody else. No special treatment other than the fact that he's my son and he has access to me at home. Right, so he can get more. He has more access to training in a moment's notice than the other kid whose parents he has to wait on to take him to the gym. I definitely would like to play coach. And I would definitely like to wear that hat primarily. And of course, I would bring in other professionals where needed.
Sure,
but I want to be the one to be there when he needs me most.
Okay.
Right? I want to be the one to help him learn how to successfully manage his emotions when he's getting ready to walk into combat, right? To really become a fighter, to learn what it means, And I don't feel like he would have any special treatment, like I said, beyond the all access to training and moment's notice.
I guess I was more asking about, you see this with like football dads, basketball dads a lot. There's a certain level, at least in my experience. Some people are phenoms and they just have the genes and everything just kind of happens for them. But there's a point where if someone says like, yo, I want to take this next level and I want to get better, that's going to require a cracking of the whip that didn't previously exist.
Yes.
And that can breed tension. It oftentimes does. It's inescapable. So would you just kind of, because it sounds like you want to be there for the building them up mentally and all this other stuff, would you leave that aspect to the said professionals you were talking about?
No, that's in a way, right? I'd probably bring in somebody for strength and conditioning, or if he's gonna be in the UFC or an MMA fighter, then I'd bring in Jeff or somebody else for some groundwork and have Richie work with him and all that. But the cracking the whip, it's not necessarily always from a brutal standpoint, right? So I would do it completely differently as my son's head coach than my dad did as my head coach.
Okay.
And my dad did the best that he could, given with what he had, as any parent does. But just a little bit of backstory on that is he grew up completely differently than I did. So he was, in a very gang-oriented environment and on his own at a very, very young age. And the dude's been stabbed. He's been this, he's been that, Yeah. And so when it came to him being my head coach, one, the dude's inconsistent, right? Like he'd be out doing whatever and just, hey, I'll be there tomorrow at this time, but, he's out partying or doing something else. So he didn't show up. So, I got to get my drunk ass brother to hold mitts for me. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing.
Yeah.
Right. So there's that aspect. But when we actually were training, he built me into a a physical warrior, and psychologically it built me too, because it was like, it was so fucking hard, and he broke me down so much. No punch I ever threw seemed to be good enough.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
And I know he was trying to come from a good place. And I'm talking, 10, 12, 15 years ago, when he was really active with coaching me.
Yeah.
Right. It would be to the point to where he was saying so much mean shit in the middle of me training, right, that I would start to get angry. And every time I hit those mitts, or every time I hit the bag, or whatever it was this motherfucker that I was hitting.
Yeah.
Right. Because the only relationship we ever really had stemmed from martial arts, but there was no dad outside of that. Right. So it was very like, all right, let me build. But the mindset that I built, that I gained from that, was how to be so fucking angry once that light switches, that I'm never going to back down, and I'm going to keep going forward. And if you don't knock me out, motherfucker, I don't care if I lose the fight at this point. I'm going to hurt you. I'm going to hit you. I'm going to drop you. You're going to fucking limp after.
Yeah.
You're going to want to stop the fight. You're not going to want to fight again.
You're going to feel me.
You're going to feel me. I don't give a shit about the win. I just want to fucking hurt you.
Yeah.
Right. And I successfully did that.
Yeah, sure.
I successfully did that because of the way that I was coached. Would I do that with my son? No.
Of course.
I would make a competitor out of him.
Yeah.
And I would provide him with the building blocks of success, which all stems from somebody's psychology. No matter what, you could do physical, right? But when you do 100 push-ups, and I'm screaming in your face saying, do 100 more. And you're like, I can't. I'm like, all right, hold the plank for 10 seconds. Okay, listen to me now. Stop fucking shaking so much.
Yeah.
Right? Breathe, listen to my voice, but hold the goddamn plank. Breathe. Calm your mind. Listen to me. You got this. This is where we win. In a very calm manner.
Yeah.
Right? It's psychology is what you build. So if a coach goes in there and they're just shitting on your psychology and saying you're not good enough, do better, you're not good enough, you're shit, you got no choice but to go in there and just fucking survive and fight physically, right? And sure, it's doing something with your emotions, but with my son, give the building blocks of success in that. How do we be smart with this? How do we access the grittiness, the proper emotion at the right time? How do we actually assess the situation to where we know which portion of our training, our mindset coaching is necessary to use in said moment? Right? That's the difference. That is the cracking the whip aspect, is really providing that insight. Right?
Yeah, man, that's, I think Bill Burr has like a joke he does about this, where it's like you just take the good shit from your parents and realize that they came from a different environment than you did, and you leave the bad shit behind. So, and I think that I definitely can relate and agree with what you're saying, because like my dad grew up in Oakland, and bad part of town, yeah, he was definitely hard on me too. And anger is a motivator, but it's not sustainable.
Not at all. It's not going to win you fights.
No.
Whether it's physical or in life,
Yeah. Man. Well, this is good, man. Is there anything else coming up you want to talk about? Social media you want to plug? Merch? You guys should get some merch. The shirt's dope.
Yeah, we're working on getting a new partnership for the merch, where we have some more merchandise coming out. So no, I think I'm good, man. And again, this is a fun opportunity. I think we should definitely do this again. It'd be nice to have all this equipment too. We could set up at the gym in the back office and sit down and do it again, and maybe dive a little bit deeper into some more nitty gritty uncomfortable conversation stuff that I think a lot of people would probably relate to, in terms of mental health or addiction and all of those other things, and why people who struggle with those aspects of life end up finding grace within something as brutal as combat sports.
But refuge for sure.
Yeah, but no, this is fun, man. Thank you.
Cool. All right, man. Well, thanks, bro. Appreciate you for coming on. Garage Goons episode 30, most trash show on YouTube. I know you didn't plug anything, but dude, tell the people your Instagram. Go follow this man, and check out his gym.
At Romero's Fight Academy on all platforms. Daniel Romero on Facebook. But yeah, at Romero's Fight Academy. We have a YouTube page as well. Instagram, you get us there, and come and train with us. It'd be awesome.
All right, guys. Share, like, stream. You know what to do, man. We out there.